You have child care workers earning substandard wages. And despite that, you have parents, working parents, paying $15,000 to have a kid in child care. Well, if you're making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, how do you afford $15,000? And that is why we have got to do again what other countries do. Understand that we want all of our kids to get off to a great start in life. We want our child care workers to be well-trained, well-paid, and we want to make sure that child care for every working family in this country is quality and affordable. And we want the best public education system in the world. We want to attract the best and the brightest in college to go into teaching, and therefore we're going to fight for decent wages and benefits for our teachers. And we are going to make, we understand, hundreds of thousands of bright young kids in this country either do not go to college at all because they can't afford it, or they're leaving school $50,000, $100,000 in debt. And Becca understands, as you do, as I do, that we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free, and we got to cancel student debt. Just a few days ago, and we are making progress, it's slow. A few days ago, I was on the phone with the governor of New Mexico, and in New Mexico, they are making public colleges and universities tuition free. They're moving to free child care for their children, and that is what we have got to do in Vermont and throughout this country. And what Becca also understands is that when we talk about the enormous challenges that we face, the movement toward authoritarianism, the fact that so many have given up on democracy, massive levels of income and wealth inequality, the fact that you got 3 Wall Street firms. People don't know this. 3 Wall Street firms. BlackRock. Anyone here ever hear of BlackRock? State Street, Vanguard. These 3 companies alone control over $20 trillion in assets throughout the world. They are the major stockholders in virtually every company that you know. That is what oligarchy is about. That is what concentration of ownership is about. That is what power is about. And that is something that Becca understands and will help me deal with. But when we talk about all of the issues out there, maybe the most important is the need for the United States to lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And when we do that, we can create millions of good-paying jobs. And the scientists have been very clear. There is no ambiguity on this issue. If we do not act boldly, if we do not have the courage to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry, then the planet we're going to be leaving to our kids, not only here in Vermont, but all over this world, will be a planet increasingly uninhabitable and unhealthy. Right now, as we speak, Europe experiencing one of the worst heat waves it has ever seen. You're seeing drought all over the world. You're seeing extreme weather disturbances. You're seeing people having to leave their own communities, again, all over the world and migrate because they don't have the water to grow their crops and provide the food that their family needs. Climate change is, in fact, the existential threat to our planet, and I know that Becca will work with me to make sure that we transform this energy system and lead the world in combating climate change. And as previous speakers here have noted, it is beyond comprehension that we have a Supreme Court that in the year 2022, this is not 1922, it's not 1822. In the year 2022, they have said to every woman in America that you do not have the right to control your own body. How outrageous is that? And I know that Becca will be one of the leaders in the Congress in taking on this outrageous effort to destroy Roe v. Wade. She will fight to codify it, put it into law, and the day will come when we're going to win that fight, because that's what the American people want. And Becca understands, I know she has worked on this here in the state Senate, the horror that we experience when we turn on the TV and we see another mass shooting. And it really is almost to me unspeakable, and I don't even like to talk about it because it brings up images that are so horrible that I just, have a hard time dealing with it, of people walking into schools and doing terrible, terrible things. And Becca understands that the time is now, that we need common sense gun safety legislation, that we make sure that people who should not own guns do not own guns, and that AR-15s are weapons of mass killing, not something that civilians should be having. So I want to thank all of you for coming out on this nice, cool day. And I do know, that there is a lot of demoralization in our country, and people are wondering, what, if anything, can happen. And I would simply say that if you look back at the history of this country, there have been a number of moments, number of times, when we have had very, very difficult situations. I mean, going back to slavery and the abolitionists who fought against slavery, going back to the Depression, where unemployment was 25%, going back to the struggle for basic women's right, the right to vote, the right to get property if you get divorced. This country has struggled through many, many difficult times, and these are one of those times. But the answer is not to despair. The answer is not to put your head into the sand. The answer is to stand up. The answer is to fight back. And the answer right now, in the next week, is to make sure that Becca Balint is elected to the U.S. Congress. Thank you all very much. And now it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you, the next Congresswoman from the state of Vermont, Becca Balint.
Senator Bernie Sanders, everyone. Senator Bernie Sanders. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out here today. I know you could be anywhere on a beautiful Vermont day, and I'm so grateful that you're here engaged in the political process. It's so important. I want to thank all the volunteers who helped set up this amazing event. I want to thank Western Terrestrials. Thank you to Esther and to Chris and to Deb for coming and letting me know what they see in me as a leader. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. And I know you all know this, but I just have to name it. Senator Sanders has had incredible moral clarity for so long, for so very long. And that is why he's beloved in this state, but also across the nation, because he reminds us that we always have to be fighting for equity and justice. Thank you, Senator. And those are things I care deeply about, and I sincerely hope I can fight for those things alongside him and hopefully Senator Welch in the upcoming legislative session. So I know many of you know me, but some of you don't. So I will say, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Becca Balint. I'm running for Congress. And I'm a mom to my kids, Abe and Sarah, who are here today. And I'm a spouse to my wife, Elizabeth, who's here today. And I couldn't do it without them. I fundamentally could not do it without them. And that's true for all the years that I've served in this building behind me. They have carried a lot of the slack back home. So Thank you. Thank you for believing in me. So I'm a mom, I'm a legislator, but if you really want to understand what makes me tick, I am a middle school teacher at heart. That is who I am. And you know, if you can teach middle school, you can do anything. You can do anything. And you can't be a middle school teacher unless you believe in the possibility of change. And I believe that I was drawn to teaching middle school because those were actually some of the hardest years of my life. It was a time when I felt very disconnected from my school and my community. There was a lot of homophobia then. I felt disconnected from my family and really tried to figure out how I was going to chart a path through in this life. And so I set out as a middle school teacher to make sure that every student felt comfortable in my classroom, that they felt supported, and that their families felt supported. And that's what I've tried to do also here in the legislature, is bring those stories of those families and those kids with me and have that guide me in my work. To have them in mind as we're passing minimum wage increases, to have them in mind as we're investing in housing and childcare and affordable housing in all the communities, not just in the largest cities, and making sure that they can see themselves represented in this building and in Congress. I went into politics to represent them, and that's still what drives me today. And I don't have to tell you that although Senator Sanders and soon to be Senator Welch and I, we have a lot of work that we want to do on behalf of working families. We want to continue the work that we've done here in Vermont. But we're at a very, very scary moment right now in this democracy. Our democracy is fundamentally being attacked. We have right-wing extremists across the country who are attacking the right to vote, especially if you're a person of color in this country. We have insurrectionists who storm the Capitol, attacking democracy itself. And we have Republicans who make excuses for all those people that did not certify the election. Oh yeah, they were standing with democracy on the day of the insurrection, and a couple days later, they were all backtracking on what they'd said. A handful of people saved us from a coup. That's where we're at. I wish that weren't true, but that's where we're at. That's the fight ahead of us, is to save this democracy. And for me, I know this is a time of courage. I know this is a time when we can't be timid. In my own family, I understand what happens when democracies fail. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, his name was Leopold Balint. He was killed in the last few weeks of the Holocaust. He was in a concentration camp that was the last camp liberated by the Allies. And in my family, we learned that democracies fail little by little, as rights are eroded, as people are scapegoated, as norms are upended, as the press is attacked. That's where we're at right now. So the stakes are incredibly high. And I want you to know that that will be a main focus of the work that I do in Congress, is making sure we have a healthy, functioning democracy that is representing all of us and not just the wealthy few. And I know I'm just going to echo a lot of the themes that the senator has touched on, because I know we're very much in alignment on the work that we know is ahead of us. It's time for regular Vermonters to be able to go to college and not be saddled with crippling debt. The 20-somethings and 30-somethings in this country are struggling so hard. They can't start families. They can't buy housing because they're being saddled with crippling debt. We need to take care of them. It's time for housing so that all Vermonters feel safe. I was a teacher for many years. I know what happens when kids don't have safe housing. It affects their ability to learn. We have to make sure that the work that we've done here in the legislature continues in Congress. Because right now, housing is not affordable for most average Vermonters. It's time for Medicare for all. Absolutely. And it's time for Medicare for all that also supports mental health care for all. And it's time, long past time, to codify our right to make decisions about our own bodies. It is a time for courage and for vision, and it's a time for tested leaders, leaders who have had to face the voters for the decisions that we've made. I am a tested leader. I have been here year after year fighting on behalf of Vermonters, and I want to take that experience with me to Congress to continue to fight on your behalf. Our congressional delegation has been the conscience of this nation for so long. Truly, yes, give it up for Senator Sanders, Peter Welch, and Senator Leahy. I know that I will be relying on Senator Welch and Senator Sanders to help me be the most effective congressperson that I can be and make a difference on your behalf. And I will be following them in their long line of service to regular people here back home. And I want to tell you, when Senator Sanders and I first met about whether he would decide to endorse in this race, the very first thing he said to me was, I want to know that you're going to be back here in Vermont on a regular basis talking to regular people and not doing your work from inside the DC bubble. And I made that promise to him. We have built an incredible coalition, not of special interests, of thousands and thousands of individual donors to our campaign. Farmers and teachers, restaurant workers, friends and neighbors, and just regular people across Vermont who have given $5, $10, or have volunteered on the campaign if they don't have the money to give. I'm so proud of this coalition that we've built and all of the union support I have behind me. And they are standing here in the hot sun with me, and I appreciate it so much. And I can't do it myself, and you know Bernie can't do it himself. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to make progress. And I sincerely hope that you see yourself reflected in this campaign, because that's what we've desperately tried to do, is create a campaign where everyone, regardless of political affiliation or no political affiliation, regardless of your geographic location in Vermont, no matter your income, no matter your background, that you have a place in this campaign. We want you and we need you. Please join us. You can tell the folks on my campaign, both the volunteers and the field staff, they're wearing Becca Balint shirts. You can sign up for a shift if you can. You can go to beccabalint.com if that's easier for you. But we've only got 9 days left. 9 days before the primary. A lot of people don't vote in primaries. And in Vermont, almost always the primary is the main event. You've got to vote in the primary. Please, I need you to vote. I need you to get your friends to vote. I need you to get your family to vote. Please, show up, vote for change in Washington. And what I mean by that is people who are going to stand up to the insurrectionists, people who are going to represent regular people and bring this democracy back in line, bring it back from the edge. That's what we need to do. I'm so in awe of all of the support that I've had on this campaign, and I'm grateful for the faith that folks have had in me and in my team. And if you had told me a year ago that I would be standing on a stage with Senator Sanders 9 days away from a primary election in which I seem to have the lead, I would not believe it. I couldn't imagine it. I could not imagine it. But we have done this together. And I promise you, if you send me to Washington, I will fight for you every minute of every day. This is the fight of our lives. It is a fight for the planet. It is a fight for justice, for regular people, for Vermont. And we can do this. We will do this. We must do this together. Thank you all for coming. And this is my phenomenal campaign manager, Natalie Silver, who is the great and powerful Oz. Behind the curtain.
Hello, hello, hello. So we're about to hear from the Western Terrestrials, and there's two things I have to say to you before we do that. The first is that we need you. We need a little bit of your money, and we need a little bit of your time. So if you have 2 hours in the next 9 days, and I know that you guys have 2 hours, I need you to find somebody in a Becca Balint t-shirt, get signed up. Races are won and lost in Vermont by hundreds of votes. That is a one.